Hey, Matias. Good morning from me. Good evening to you.
Hi, good morning and good evening.
Thanks for coming back on. This is, I mean, at this point, it's just a holiday tradition to have you on sometime in December, right?
It really is. I kind of realized this looking forward to this. I realized that for some people, hearing that Coca-Cola commercial or listening to the first Mariah Carey Christmas song, that's kind of that marks the start of the Christmas holidays. But to me, it's being on your channel, Reed.
Exactly. I still don't know if we'll ever top the celebrity guest Fabric that was on one of the years. That
Right.
that
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 was
was a pretty
fun.
good one.
Yeah, yeah.
The there was so far the first and only holiday special actual live stream that I've done. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it was
yeah.
special.
It was. I even had special overlays that popped up and everything to make it a little bit on theme with that. But yeah, I actually speaking of like just the on the theme of the topic today with AI. It's funny that you mentioned Coca-Cola because I know they've gotten some a bit of flack recently because I guess the last couple of years they'd used AI to make their Christmas video like and it's
Mm.
fairly well a couple of years ago it's that noticeable like AI polish that's like it's like a gloss that's on videos. So they did AI
Yeah.
generation with the little truck and the polar bears and people are like, all right, that's with a company that big, they can't afford to just to pay like a development shop to CGI it. Like instead, you're just going to do a prompt and probably spend like $100 to make this.
Right. So I think that's the key difference there. I mean, the first AI video they did, that was trying something new. It was a little groundbreaking, but now it just seems like they're doing it to be, I mean, saving some cost or whatever. I mean, the quality seemed to have even gone down at a time where AI generated video quality is like going through the roof. So this is just it just feels weird, and I kind of get the backlash. But
What if
yeah.
I remember too, is because early AI videos could only be like 3 to 4 seconds long. It couldn't do one continuous one, and their video specifically had a bunch of small cuts where you could tell that they just did a bunch of Coca-Cola themed prompts probably and just stitched them together into a 30-second ad. So it was
Right. Right.
rather
Yeah,
disappointing
yeah, and
for the
people are
company that
complaining it's
big.
like different art style, it's a whole
Yeah.
mashup, but I mean, yeah.
I think the biggest one is it's just like, if anybody can afford to continue to pay people who like do this as a living for development purposes, like you could be Coca-Cola with their very deep pockets for that. But
Right.
tangents aside, on the topic of like coming back on, for the people who are tuning in now or watching this later, let's start with maybe having you do a brief kind of introduction of who you are, what you do, and then we'll segue into kind of the AI agents and stuff topic of the day today.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my name is Mathias Halkjær. At this very moment, I'm actually at home with my little, well, not newborn anymore, but 8-month-old kid, just chilling around, having fun. Um, I travel a lot. I do a lot of conferences. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I really have a huge passion for everything Fabric, Power BI, well, or anything data and AI related that Microsoft kind of puts out there. And in my daily life, I actually just announced today that I am moving into a different company and a different position as a senior director for Microsoft Data Platform. So that's a lot
Nice.
of excitement there. Yeah.
Yeah, congrats on the new opportunity, new role. The
Thank you.
uh, it was somewhat of like unexpected, I think, as well too for you, right, to land where you ended up. I don't know if like how much you don't want to share. I personally thought it was very serendipitous myself. If you had any other context you want to
Yeah,
share, or we
no,
can, yeah.
yeah, no, there's nothing like nothing not shareable. I can be
Yeah.
transparent. So yeah, I had like a different plan. I had an idea of wanting to go like start my own company, but then kind of the right opportunity from the right people kind of came along, and I kind of went like, well, that's more cool. Let me go that direction. So I found a place where I feel like they have like a great ambition, a great vision, and that really aligned with my where I'm at. So it's a really good choice. I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad that it did.
Well, glad to, yeah, it's you're just as you meant, like right about ready to like dip your toes in the independent pool, and but it is cool, I think, when somebody reaches out to you rather than you go like, there's a little bit like, oh, I've my reputation precedes me to a degree that somebody wants to talk to you, so it feels a little nice to know that like your skill set has a bit of a broad reach, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, there's a yeah, that's a yeah, that's a very comfortable position to be in.
Exactly. I sometimes forget, like even myself, the reach that I have until I get somebody who wants to come up and get a photo with me at like at a conference. I like to tell my friends because they don't. A lot of them are not in BI. Like with a very like specific subset of individuals, I'm
Yeah,
somewhat well known in a very nerdy
yeah,
community of
exactly.
cool people. Yeah.
I I used to be a huge StarCraft 2 geek, and there were this guy, I think his name was Sean Plot. Yeah, I don't even
Hmm.
remember his nickname. Day 9 or something like that. And he was so famous within that niche community of StarCraft. And he was like, it was fun to see him. Like he had like a talk where he explained, well, no one knows who he is, even at his school. He's just this kid. But then he travels to something like South Korea, and he's like famous. And people stop him on the street and everything. And yeah, I get that kind of feeling. Can you sometimes get a glimpse of that at conferences or places where a lot of data passionate people are?
Well, I would agree. I think it's nice just to be surrounded by people with a similar passion. Digressions aside, it's easy to like I could spend a whole like stream just talking about community. But coming back to the topic
Yeah, yeah.
of AI and around like agentic AI as well, or data agents. Sorry. Well,
No,
what are
both.
we going to
Yeah.
be getting into today, and where do we want to start?
Yes, I think this is a really interesting topic. So we've named the session today Fabric Data Agents and Beyond. And for me, this is maybe with emphasis on the and beyond, because I think that we're kind of at an inflection point where I do think that we're going to see real traction with how AI assisted tools are being adopted. I mean, I know you and I have had conversations about like the whole emergent field of wipe coding and how that's kind of becoming more accepted, and how that both you and I have done stuff that are actually production ready is ish, for in your case very production ready, and it has elements of being written entirely by AI. And I think that is really a groundbreaking place that we're in. So I want to kind of explore that, but from the point of view of the Fabric Data Agent, to make sure that anyone who's listening in, they know what the Fabric Data Agent is, how they can use it, what are the assistance they get from the UI. But I also want to go beyond. I want to dig deeper and talk about what can we do programmatically. So there's an Fabric Data Agent SDK that we can use to do stuff programmatically inside Fabric with notebooks. But there's also actually like the API endpoint, which we can leverage to do even more, or let's say different use cases outside of Fabric, but using like
Okay.
that core foundation of the data you have in Fabric, the semantic, like the semantic details, the semantic layer, everything you prepare around your data and your metadata for your data, you can kind of leverage that both inside and outside of Fabric. And that is to me kind of the and beyond part of what we're going to talk about today. So there will be also a little bit of vibe coding, because I do think that one of the ways that we can kind of move this to the next level can be that we can do whole new way of playing around with our data by creating like very specific custom apps that even can maybe be built
Yeah.
for a specific user or a specific team or a small department. It doesn't have to be big and production grade anymore. Yeah, so a lot of stuff to unwrap, to be honest.
Yeah, on the theme of Christmas.
On the theme of Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're ready
Um,
to get started, I can flip over to your screen.
sure.
Excellent. Let's do
So
that.
I've brought a slide here where I've tried to illustrate some of the core concept of the Fabric data agent. So at the core, the data agent is a easy configurable, exposable, multi-source, developer-friendly, all these keywords. Anyway, it's an easy way for you and I and everyone else to take their data estate and leverage it through an AI agent. So it's opening up these cases of being able to ask questions to our data and get answers back. Now that may seem quite simple. Ask a question, you get an answer back, but it's actually a lot more than simple. There are many levers to kind of to pull and to tweak, and there's a lot of stuff we can do to make those answers become well, as closer to the truth that we would like. I mean, this is all about kind of engineering that context and that I almost want to say mind space of the AI we're talking to make sure that it knows enough to give us good answers. And we have a bunch of different ways we can do this. So when we create a data agent, we can set up these agent instructions where we can give it like language instructions. We can give it plain English instructions like our revenue is handled by this column, or something like in our company, when we talk about turnover, it means X, Y, and Z, and so on. We can kind of give it this kind of specific context to us and what we want to use the data agent for. Then the important part, we can add these different data sources, the different the different how do you say it, like artifacts of data, and we can, for each of them, we can set up specific instructions as well. So for a specific data source, you can tell it what to do with this. We can add example queries to make sure that if there's something special about our data, we can actually show it an example and have it learn from that. And of course, we can select what tables it should access and not. So there's kind of a good chunk of basic functionality that we can get out of the box. So that's kind of the simple use case. And this is one of the things I really like about the Fabric data agents, is that to get started, we don't have to plan for like month-long or year-long projects to do something. We don't even really have to schedule weeks. I mean, in a single day or even half a day, you can get started with your first proof of concept and see kind of where if that quality is good enough for your use case, and if not, then you have other stuff we can do to kind of improve this quality of the agent. So I really like how easy and quick it is to get started with the agent. And with that said, I mean, how about we jump in and I show you an example of just how easy it is to set up?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Cool. So in Power BI, we have something like a workspace. I'm just going to go to, where did it hide? Fabric, data agents, and beyond. So I've prepared the boring parts. You don't need to sit here and watch me create a lakehouse and populate it with some data for us to play with. So we already have a lakehouse, and that lakehouse have one of the sample retail data sets with like a standard star schema model. It has dimensions, it has fact tables, and so on. And that's what we need. So from there, we can just go create a new item. And with new item, I mean, easier to search for agent. So there's the data agent and also now the new operations agent, which is a little different. And we're not going to talk much about that today, but the data agent for chatting to our data. So we have to give it a name. We could call it Christmas for the sake of today.
Keeping it on theme.
No,
yeah.
let's call it Santa. Santa sales. We're sticking to the theme here. So this is the UI. As I said, there were a few stuff we could play around with, and we can start with setting up a data source. So with data source, I can do things cross workspace. So I'm not limited to the workspace I'm in. I can pick a bunch of different stuff, but in this case, I would be interested in data from this agent lakehouse. We have many choices when we have to choose these data sources. We can take data from lakehouses, we can have data from warehouses, we can have data from semantic models, and I believe also KQL databases. And I feel there is even a fifth like niche source that I've forgotten, but there are like plenty of options, and likely if your specific like data storage isn't part of this list, likely you can mirror it into some of the other objects and still have it available for the data agents. So it's very like broad coverage.
For the most part, like, I mean, if it's anywhere in the Microsoft ecosystem, you should be able to connect to it.
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of one of the whole core tenets of Fabric is that we shouldn't need to move data around so much, having multiple copies, multiple versions of the same data. I mean, have it one place, replicate it, or like shortcut it, mirror it to the other places we need to use it. But even for data agents, most of the sources we can use natively, so we don't even need to go through this extra hoop of shortcutting it or something like that. Anyway, the data is here. And from like the starting point, I won't be able to do much with it because I kind of need to switch on whatever tables I want to use.
Yep.
We are stuck with the original data schema, so it's not like I can go and change the table name from fact sales to something else in this UI. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I would have to create new tables or add a semantic layer on top where I change these names or something like that. So that it is what it is. But we can do things like, as I said, source-specific instructions. Maybe this had an obscure name that wasn't so clear. We could go and add this data source instruction, and I could say here that the sales data is represented in fact sales. And now my model would kind of know this, or my agent would know this extra fact of how do I read these schemas. So we can do stuff even though we cannot alter it directly. So I think that's really neat. I only added one data source, but if I needed or wanted to, I could have added other stuff. So maybe I had data in this finance app I wanted to add. I could add that as well, and it would be part of the same user interface here. I'm not sure we can query it because I think this one is actually in a workspace without a capacity, but let's just keep it there let's remove it again. But we can do that and add multiple sources. And the agent will then kind of decide which of these sources do I want to ask for the specific question that the user is asking me. All right. That was kind of the setting up the data source. If we wanted to do more rigorous advanced stuff, we can go and add also these example queries.
And also just for readability, do the control mouse wheel zoom in and make it like 20% bigger on the browser. One more. There you go. Perfect.
No worries. Good point, Reed. Right. And in the heat of the thing, I've forgotten the zoom shortcut. Can you remind me?
Zoom it. Usually Control 1 or Control 2 for the whether or not it's draw zoom or live zoom.
Oh no. Well, we'll have to make do without it then. It didn't
no worries.
Anyway, so while we're doing this work of setting up the data source, picking the data we need, we can always go and test out the agent and ask it questions. So already now by connecting these dimensions and sales, I could ask a question like, what's our revenue this month? Or something like that. And it's going to process this, and we can see what it's doing. So we have this concept of a buying group. Let's say sales split by customer category. So if we're lucky, it won't be able to infer that customer category is buying group, and then we can show you an example of a source instruction working. But with AI, I mean, it's okay. So no data was found split by customer category. Fine. So let's try to actually fix this. Go to the source. We want to add an instruction. So here in data source instructions, customer category is buying group. And now that's part of the instructions and the agents will know about it. So I can try to ask it again.
Okay.
Customer category. And it should now have this extra context, this extra knowledge. And yeah, it did. Now we actually got the answer we wanted. So that was like source specific. You can also do agent specific. I mean, you could add a source specific guidance here. I could have done the same thing here, right? Customer category is buying group, but it doesn't make sense unless it's for the specific source. And that's easily going to add noise to queries for other sources than this specific one. But agent instructions are really good if we want to ask it to do a specific tone of voice or a specific way of phrasing things or like a business terminology that we're used to in our company. So there's I mean, everything that we can instruct it to in plain English is kind of, we can use these instructions to nudge it.
Yep.
And for the sake of the theme, let's just have a little fun and say, write your answers. Speak like Santa Claus.
Nice.
Yeah, and we can try again and see if that actually works. It had a ho ho ho, and I assume that it's because of the instructions and not just because it's the Christmas time.
Nice.
Yeah, so we can do a lot of tweaking here. We can set things up, and we can do stuff. But that's kind of it. I mean, once we've added the source, fixed the source instructions, potentially added example queries. We can add an example here. So let's say I wanted to make sure that querying this buying group, for example. We can use the query as an example. Something's odd with the UI here.
When
I'm
in
just going
doubt,
to
blame
zoom out and
Microsoft.
see if it's... Yeah. This one will blame Microsoft. Anyway, the concept is pretty clear. You can see the screen here. Whenever I click it, it disappears. So I won't. But you can see the screen here. I could have added the specific query, added a question, and the engine or the AI would then know how to infer that this is kind of a pattern that it has to match. So it knows if anyone is asking this specific question, it knows to use this query. That's not a problem. But it's also not like only a direct match. It also knows that if someone is asking an adjacent question, it will also use this query. But it also knows that because of this question resulting in this query, there is some contextual knowledge in there. There's a pattern there. So if it had it was a question about sales volume and you used a specific column called net ref sales or something like that, it would also know and infer that this specific question means this specific column. So even for other questions not related to this specific question, it would still have that contextual knowledge. So you can give this context not just by the instructions, you can also offer it with these query examples. But that's kind of it. I mean, set this up and you're good to go. And you can click the publish button and have your agent available to yourself and to your colleagues.
What's one of your favorite uses that you've found with tinkering around with this so far, as something maybe novel or unique that you stumbled across where it's an out-of-the-box solution, if you have any, out of curiosity?
Well, there's two facets here. So first of all, what I really find neat is what I'm going to talk about next. Is that we can actually do much more than this once we dig into the kind of the code behind the agent and behind the UI. But I would say that for me, a very quick way to leverage something like a semantic model and have the semantic model represented as a dialoguing agent, with almost just a single click. I think that's really powerful. So yes, I can set up the basic agent in a few minutes or even in a few hours with a little bit more quality to it. But if you have a semantic model and it's already prepared and you have your synonyms in place, you have your good descriptions for your measures and all those things, you can kind of leverage that with a single click. Just create an agent on that semantic layer and boom, you have now a pretty good data agent with all that business logic and knowledge from that semantic layer. So I really think that's a neat combination, those two. Which kind of brings me to my next point, because I'm just going to go back to the slide for a bit, because we like this was the basic setup of the data agent, and there's a few key concepts, but it's not that complicated altogether. There is a little like wrinkle though, and that is you have this engine in the middle. So whatever we're doing, that's going to end with the engine, which then converts it to either DAX, SQL, or KQL. Yep. And if it's specifically that, sorry, did you have a question?
Oh no, sorry, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. And if it's specifically DAX, something else kind of actually happens. So let's start with like the regular path. The regular path is we're asking a question for the data agent. It takes that question, processes it with the instructions we've given it. It then looks at the data sources. Which data source does it have available to it? It adapts or adapts to the instructions and example queries and sends all that context to the orchestrator agent. The orchestrator agent then has to decide which data source are we picking. And once it's picked one or multiple data sources, it's converting all that context into a new prompt that is sent to either of these engines. So the same question may generate a different prompt depending on if your source is a lakehouse or if it's a semantic model or if it's a KQL database. And it may even send multiple prompts to several sources to get its answer. So it's kind of rephrasing this question with this whole context, and then it's using one of these three natural language to code engines. So there are three sub AIs in this AI that can convert a language instruction to a query. So we have the natural language to DAX, the natural language to SQL, and the natural language to KQL. And each of them is like their own specialized mini AI, which will convert whatever has been said and asked and convert it into the query that's supposed to be actually run. Then that query is run, everything goes back to the agent, and everything is turned into a formulated answer that the user sees. The thing is, we saw this before, all this happens actually in seconds. So this is not a long, tedious, complicated process, but a lot of stuff is actually happening behind the scenes. The thing is, if one of those sources is a semantic model, something else kind of happens altogether, because the semantic model is special. The semantic model already has all these kind of contextual knowledge. It don't necessarily need data source instructions because we have the descriptions for our tables, the description for our columns, the descriptions for our measures. We have the names of all those objects. We have, even like the measure definitions. And so, I mean, we have all this metadata context in that semantic model. So we don't really need to redo that. So with semantic models, these steps are kind of looking a little bit different because it's actually skipping the data source definitions almost altogether. It's still recognized that the semantic model is part of the list, but it doesn't really use any of the other information for anything. Now, last time I tested this was a few weeks ago. It may have changed since, but last time I tested it, if you chose like added tables in the selection here or remove table, it didn't make any difference. If you removed a table, but it was in the semantic model, it would still use it. And if you added a table that was unselected in the semantic model, it would not use it. So it blindly just used the standard definition from the semantic model. Which is fine because the semantic model is kind of like a prepackaged semantic understanding of that specific data set. It's exactly what the AI kind of wants, and set it up that place once and use it for potentially multiple agents. I think it's just a good pattern.
There's one comment that, just speaking of semantic models and stuff in the context of agents, like it actually would be nice if we could mark as a fact type or dimension type without having to do prefixes, because I'm assuming that extra context where it's like, this is supposed to be used for categories, this is supposed to be used for aggregation. I would figure that would, if anything, just help the agents or anything else just analyze them a little bit better.
For sure. But if you think about how you would prepare this for a human user instead of an AI user, you kind of you get the same kind of challenge. You need to find a way that they know that this is a fact and this is dimension, and you don't necessarily want to call the table fact and dimension. So of course you can do stuff like put them in specific folders, or you can add it to the description of the table and do all those sorts of things. Well, the AI is able to use a lot of these things too. So I think if we're just being a little pedantic and just, do what we would already do for the business users, but just do it even better and even more, because the AI is a little, I don't know how you phrase it. It will go on a tangent. It will trust what you did blindly. So if you made it messy, it won't necessarily be able to look beyond the mess. The same way a human would be able to. I think, structure is good. For AI, structure is even better. But you can set up all these contexts in the semantic model itself. It has a whole prep for AI functionality bundle where you can set up a data scheme. You can add specific AI instructions. You can add these verified answers that are based on actual reporting visuals. So you don't even need to go through the DAX query layer. You just create like a visual with what you believe is a really important kind of almost a carve out of your data set, like a verified truth. And then you just select that visual and tell the model, like, this visual is a verified answer for you. You should treat this as like kind of the golden source for how you analyze the data. So those are really powerful as well. And then finally, descriptions and synonyms for measures and for everything else, that also really adds a good context. So if you had to if you put a gun to my face and ask me, so which source is best for a data agent? Hands down, the semantic model would be it. But there are definitely reasons for why you would want to go to maybe the underlying lakehouse or the KQL engine instead. There are definite reasons. But the semantic model is kind of an artifact that was built to be used by AI. So that's really neat. Anyway, if we look at the Santa sales again, and we're publishing it, we do have the option here to publish it directly to the agent store in Microsoft 365 Copilot, and that will out of the box make it available for us in whatever M365 Copilot we're using. So if we have that integrated to our Teams workflow, well, then suddenly this agent would also be something we could communicate with in Teams, and so on and so on. It also is, you're also able to use it in Copilot Studio. I believe, didn't test it, but I believe also AI Foundry. So it's kind of easy to leverage the Fabric data agents in all the other agent experiences in Microsoft. Cool. And all it takes is a publish, and you can check the publishing details here. There is a published URL, which is kind of an API endpoint, which if you dig a little bit into it, you can see that they're utilizing the OpenAI standard for communicating with agents. Like they have an API standard for that. So while it can be a little hard to find this specific documentation for using this API endpoint, if you just look at like the OpenAI standard, it's actually not that hard to find. But we can use this and leverage it in a lot of other places. Cool.
One of my favorite things to think about this is, as you mentioned, is like there's always a nice kind of happy medium mix of easy button versus intermediate to advanced that when it's integrated just in the Fabric platform for a lot of these things. So it like there's a little bit of code that goes into it, but it's super. Once you get the instruction sheet, it's not that difficult to set up.
Right, exactly. But anyway, Reed, that was the basic stuff. And how much time do we have left?
We got another like 30 minutes or so.
Cool. Yeah, because there are other stuff. We can do more than this. So if we still stay within the realms of Fabric, there are a layer behind all of this. So if you see here, I'm asking it questions and stuff like that. There is a diagnostic tab where if I wanted to, I could get some metadata which would tell me, oh no, cancel. That's fair. We're going to look at that in a bit. How about I move this to a different tab? There you go. I'm just going to open it as plain text so you can see that there's a lot going on actually. Now you don't need to understand, we don't need to like go through and understand all of this stuff. But as you see, like this diagnostic kind of have the whole context of what are we communicating to the agents, what steps is the agent going through itself, all sorts of details. And you can see there's actually a lot of stuff going on behind the scene. All of this stuff and prompts back and forth between different like sub agents and steps. All of this is happening within those seconds of us asking that question and getting that answer back. So easy, neat UI, easy to set up, but very deep, like in its core. And we can use that. So there is a what is it called? There's a Fabric Data Agent SDK. So this will be on the documentation page as well. And within Fabric, all you have to do is use this pip install Fabric Data Agent SDK. So we can go and do that. We can also use a sample notebook. So Microsoft already made some sample notebooks for us to play with.
Then just zoom in a wee bit just for the text.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks, Reed.
So the best part about at least the browser is like it's hit or miss on desktop apps, but browsers always it's so easy just to magnify. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna download this and I'm just gonna upload it on my second screen because I do not remember which kind of files I have in my download folder. I'm sure it's all very, very fine and dandy, but I just don't want to accidentally share like someone's data or something like that. Great, so it's importing now. And we have the evaluation sample. So with this package, we can actually do a lot of stuff. Before we go to the evaluation, I can say from the automation, we can do things like we can create a Fabric Data Agent with code. So like from a single line of Python code, we can create a new agent. We can change its data sources, its instructions, everything. We can change that through code as well. And finally, we can delete it again. So this opens up even use cases like generate a data agent, change the source, add a bit of context, run it through some sort of evaluation scheme, check if it's doing good or if it's doing better than the base agent. And if it's not, delete it again. Try a new iteration, or even like you could even make it like evolutionary, have multiple agents, have them compete with each other and make the best one pop out. Of course, this is going to take a lot of work and this is going to take a lot of time. But I mean, I'm just trying to say that because we can do this with code, we can actually do stuff really, really fast, like creating hundreds of data agents to test different configurations and find which one gives the best answers for our specific data or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get far just out of the box with the UI. So this is not for everyone, but if you are at a place where you're really, really cognizant about these like small changes, we want to make sure that if we ask this kind of question, that it always answers in this specific way. You can use this programmatic developer the SDK to help you automate that. So there's potential for automation here and stuff like that. But anyway, these are publicly available. If this is something that's interesting to you, I would recommend to go download them, try them out yourself. These are built around a different data set, so I could try and run them here, but I'm afraid the answers are not going to make sense in this specific data set. But that doesn't matter because I'm going to show you something that is equally cool, but on this data in a working example. So yeah, there's potential to automate, create them, delete them, modify them, but also run these evaluations, like define here a question answer scheme, like what was the total sales in 2014, and this is the answer. The thing is, you can then also configure evaluation parameters. You can set up stuff like how does it evaluate them? Does it do some sort of a fuzzy match where it's looking if they are close enough-ish text-wise, or are you using like a specific AI agent like OpenAI and have that look at the answer, look at the default, like the verified answer, and compare is this an acceptable answer? So you can actually have really like complex and intricate verification schemes to make sure that your agent is behaving just like you want it to behave. And perhaps even more importantly, that it's keep behaving in that way that you want it to behave, so that it doesn't drift over time. So you could send up like a big evaluation. You could potentially create thousands or hundreds of thousands or something like that, different questions that you want to evaluate it on. And then every time you suspect there is a change to maybe the underlying model, or someone made a change to the agent itself, or maybe just the data set behind it had like a major change, well, you can run these verifications or these evaluations and make sure that it's not drifting and that it's still answering in that reliable way that you had it do when you designed it in the first place. So for me, this is really about productionizing the AI. I mean, it's easy to design something, kind of feel your gut feeling, yeah, it's answering okay correctly, and then we'll just ship it and let the users deal with it if it stops being as truthful going forward. But with a tool like this, you have some capabilities that can help you do this better. Yeah,
I like the laid out notebook as well. I think it also, like, just with any of these, are any of these artifacts shareable or will be shared for just people that want to poke around in this stuff? Or
yeah. I can share everything I'm showing, almost everything I'm showing today. But most of what I'm showing that isn't my PowerPoints are publicly available. So these notebooks are publicly available on Microsoft's own GitHub repo. The documentation for the SDK is available in the normal Microsoft documentation. I mean, everything here is publicly available, so you can search it out yourself. But I also happily share links for everything with you, Reed, and you can share it with the audience when we're finished. So we will add it to I don't know where you add this, maybe the chat or just the description or something. But yeah, we'll of course share everything. Okay, so that was one like extra tool that makes us use this better. It has one big limitation though, and that is the Fabric Data Agent SDK currently only works within Fabric. So it's kind of like the semantic link it's kind of like the semantic link. It's a Fabric specific library or a Fabric specific package. Which means you're kind of limited to Notebook as your programming experience for these automations. Yeah, it's fine if you have a simple, like, I want to run this specific validation every month or every week, and I just have one notebook and it's not going to change much. Well, the notebook is really great for those use cases. But if you want to create like more of an app experience or something that is more advanced, it can be an annoyance that you are locked into just notebooks and that they have to like run in Fabric to work. But there is luckily a workaround for that as well. There is like the API itself. So as you saw when I published it, there was an API endpoint. We can use that API outside of Fabric. So we can still ask these questions to the agent. We can also dig into that deep metadata of everything that's going on and all those steps and all that debugging. And we can also use that to build our own validations if we want to. And there is even, on top of this, there is a Fabric Data Agent client repo, also from Microsoft, also open licensed, publicly available, which makes it easier for you to get started with connecting to the agents outside of Fabric. So it has a library. You have to clone it to whatever like project you are running, and then once that is done, it actually has quite a simple setup to create a conversation. Like, this is what you need to do, like this part of code, and already here you're starting creating conversation threads that you can chat with the agent through, and it has advanced features as well. So it's a good starting point to get started quick. Now let's say, Reed, because you and I know that if you want to prototype something rather quickly, and even if it's an advanced thing, sometimes it can be a little nice to just rely on agents to doing the job for us, right?
True.
Yeah. So I took this repo, and took all the text, and I took the repo itself, and I just copy pasted it to a vibe coding agent, and I asked it, like, can we use this repo to do something for an application? So the first thing I did is I took it to Copilot Studio, and that's what you're seeing here. I said, please use this library and create a simple code here where I can test that I can actually ask questions of this agent. So in this specific code, you're seeing an example here. We're just asking. I'll try to zoom in. I'm not.
Yeah, the one downside is it doesn't. Yeah, VS Code doesn't have a.
It doesn't. Is it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a plus or minus button for VS Code. Someone might correct me in chat, but I don't think it does.
Anyway, this is just an example of how do we run this code to actually validate it's working. And I was asking a hard-coded question, what is the total sales this quarter? And as you can actually see here, it gave me some response back. So that was cool. Took all of it and fed it to like a pure vibe coding platform like Lovable. And I just went, and I can even share that conversation. That's not a problem. And just, let's see if we can get to the start of the conversation. And this is the mind-blowing thing, Reed. I asked it this question 4 hours ago. This was, in my time, this was 3.5 hours ago, to be exact. This was when I started saying, hey, it would actually be cooler if I just didn't show like some raw code in Copilot, but made an actual app to browse my agents in a more like sleek way that I wanted to. 3.5 hours ago, and this is where we landed after 3.5 hours. So I now have a UI that lets me log in with my Azure AD account. That means potentially that I could send you. If I publish this app, I could send it to you, Reed, and you could log in, and it would be your Fabric workspaces, it would be your Fabric agents, it would be your stuff that actually popped out here. Nothing is hard-coded, nothing is like a, how do you say it, like sticks and tape demo. This is actual APIs calling the backend data of my Fabric.
That's cool.
So I can find this new agent that we created, the Santa sales, and start using some example questions. Now, this is similar to the browsing experience inside Fabric. So this is not novel in itself. So we could ask something like, show me your top 10 customers. And it's going to use that bundle here of the Fabric Data Agent client and everything, all that functionality. It's going to use that to build a connection, use my Azure token for my user, and get me that answer back. Now, I quickly said it's using my Azure token. And that means that whoever is logged into this platform or whatever tool we're building, if they're using their own Azure credentials, their own Azure token, they will always get the same data that they would if they were asking the agent natively inside Fabric, which means they only get the data that they actually have access to. So row level security is going to be be taking account for. If you don't have access to a specific data source, it won't be able to fetch that data source for you because it's using your login context to get the data. Now it answered. The cool thing here is I can click on a little debug button. And now we're fetching some of these crazy long metadata I talked about, like the whole JSON of diagnostics and stuff like that, because maybe I wanted to dig into what happened behind the scenes. And again, I had an agent help me vibe code an app that put it into a neat UI because I didn't understand understand that JSON when I started out. I just kind of said, well, this is how it looks. You're a robot. Maybe you understand this robot talk better than I do. And it did. So it added here like debug information. I have whatever steps happen. So like first tool call was for the analyze database executive. So it sent something to the SQL endpoint, and I can see specifically this is the SQL statement that it sent. I can see the output of data that it got back. I can see what it did next. It asked some data for the lakehouse endpoint. Yeah, say again?
I just said I love stats in general.
Yeah. I mean, the more data, the better, right? And we have here also the specific like SQL query it generated here. So we have a bunch of stuff we can look into. And if we wanted to, we could also look at the raw data response here as well. Now, so this was kind of using the debug metadata part of, we could also done that with SDK. But I even took it a step further and said, hey, I don't just want to browse the AI. I want to actually have a framework to evaluate it and keep it at a certain quality level. So I added this evaluation framework where I can create a kind of a test set. In this case, I actually added it on the other model. Can we change that? No, unfortunately not. That doesn't matter. So this is checking the retail. This is another model, the same model, but I changed it to speak like a pirate instead of Santa. So you'll have to bear with that. And I've used like the same two method that was in the SDK, so I can do a fuzzy match where it's just matching are the sentences vector like close enough to each other. So it's just doing kind of a, I want to say like a computer gut feeling match. And then you have the LLM comparison where it's an actual LLM AI that is analyzing both answers and deciding with its own reasoning if those two are close enough. So different methods. One is faster, cheaper. The other one is more complex and more expensive and potentially better. But anyway, you can then go and ask these test questions like, what are the total sales for December? And you can have that answer be a static answer like here, or you can have that answer be like a specific SQL query that then needs to give that answer. We're going with static for now. And once we have that question, I can run these evaluations, and it will actually run my agent in real time using these specific questions, validating the specific answers, and giving me like a evaluation report of how did it do. And in this case, we actually do see some sort of a kind of a drift, but this is more of a technical glitch than anything. You see the test I did on this earlier showed that, well, it was passing everything. We can even see the expected value here, and we can see not the full text, but like some of the text that it was supposed to show. So it matches. Yeah, it matches even though that this number was just part of the sentence. It's not like a regex or like a text compare. It's a logical, well, vector-based closeness comparison, which seems like logical. And in this case, it caught some of the errors. Like this one, it had a confidence of 50 because it wasn't able to get the answer, and this is because of probably me hitting the API too much at the same time right now. So this is just like the API returning an error. And this one, even though it gained the same error, it actually accepted that because it's not supposed to be able to answer this question. So we can build out from this, and as I said, generate maybe 100 questions or whatever we need to feel confident that our agent is doing well. And even did a little neat feature where, I mean, it's probably not going to work if the API is over throttled, but where I can have the agent itself help me generate what would be good questions to use for testing. So right now it's sending some prompts to the agent, asking it, hey agent, you're a Santa sales agent or pirate sales agent. What would be good questions to validate your data set? And it would come back with that. And then it would run those questions, get the actual results, and it's going to bring that back to me in just a few seconds. You see here, it's on the second half of the 10 questions that it's generating.
While we're on this, let me see if I can get up the question. I forgot to ask this earlier. Well, like, what's the general compute unit cost of all this?
Yes, excellent question. I'm gonna be honest and say I think the compute is a little steep, but that's not from connecting outside of Fabric. I mean, the to my knowledge, the API endpoint to use that doesn't create like specific extra consumption, but the communicating with the agent itself seems a little consumptious, it seems a little consumption expensive in the use cases I've done. I do get that it's running it through like bunch of steps and multiple prompts and a long context window and all of that, and it's generating a query and it's actually fetching data, and that data load may be part of that consumption. But I did like my own demo, preparing for this demo before going to this session, and I kind of quickly built up at least 50% of an F16 for a whole day. So I mean, the next day after this session, I won't be able to use my F16 because it's blocked up by one user playing around with one data agent. So to the expensive side, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because I think use cases like this are like going to bring, or at least will potentially bring, like mass adoption of agents, that we can bring it outside of Fabric and that we can do all sorts of cool stuff. But the problem is that if they are that costly, then that adoption becomes even problematic in an organization. Yeah, as you see, it brought here back some examples now here. It's
just a wee
what
bit
are
again.
the top 5 selling products and all of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So how about that? I mean, 3.5 hours of vibe coding to get something where we can log in with an Azure token, we can fetch a list of workspaces and fetch a list of data agents and run those through, like debug data and even set up an evaluation framework. I mean, I'm a little mind blown with what we can do when we know the inner workings and have AI accelerate our work.
I think it's really cool, like just how quickly you can produce some of this stuff. I've been doing a lot of it myself just recently on, as long as you have an idea between either data agents, agentic AI, or just good models like Cloud Code, it is really easy to put the tires to the asphalt, so to speak, and then build some of this stuff out. And it's always fun.
Yeah, for sure. It really is. And I think I really don't want anyone to leave with the point that, oh, we need to build this because Microsoft don't. I don't think that's the point at all. I think actually it's the point that what we have inside the Fabric stack with the semantic model and with the whole like one lake, it really is such a powerful way to keep our data in this pristine format where it can be leveraged. And I think being able to move it outside of Fabric and actually have use cases where users can browse it in new, novel, innovative ways, I think that's just making whatever is inside Fabric just a more like valuable. And I think that's kind of why I'm so excited about this whole movement, because I think the way we are utilizing and consuming data is going to change the next 1 or 2 years. And I think Microsoft really nailed something down with like that core data foundation.
They did. I've been having some interesting conversations with a few people on this, but like I am curious to know how the next 2 years will look for the reporting layer in Fabric and Power BI, because it's, let me actually switch back to us here. of all the things
I
that I think people are catching up to, it's that they're still leagues ahead on their data hosting, semantic modeling. Like there's nothing that's close to catching up with the semantic model yet. But I do wonder, with agentic stuff like this, is like how much Power BI will continue to be a reporting platform versus just the data is hosted in Fabric, but continual other tools. Yeah. I talk a lot with Kurt and others on things, and it's you'd be surprised how easy it is if you just ask like LLMs to use Vega or Vega Lite, like the open source visual tool, and make me a dashboard, use the get data connection via like an API to like a semantic model, and you could almost build out a report sometimes a little bit faster than using the Power BI desktop with that stuff. Granted, there's security and other stuff to consider, but I'm wondering where it will evolve on outputting information.
I'm pretty sure that Power BI, or let's just say the consumption experience of using our data, is going to look vastly different in 2 or 3 years. And I think Power BI as a tool, the reporting side of Power BI as a tool, will need to do some hefty pivoting to stay as relevant as it is today. That's kind of my opinion, because it's I mean the kind of that wow moment most of us had 5, 7, 10 years ago, where we made the first Power BI report, and it was so fast and it was so sleek, and you had like the cross filtering between your visuals, and it was like, wow, it's like, how can it do it this fast? Why is it working this well? I think AI or like vibe coding stuff is kind of doing that same movement now with, now we can suddenly do much more with our data than just reporting. I mean, reporting is going to still be a thing, but I just think we're going to see whole new ways of also consuming our data and I think Power BI will need some sort of pivoting if it wants to stay as relevant as it is today.
Well, I think a big one for it, which is why a lot of LLMs struggle on editing the report layer. Like we have the report definition and like tangenting a little bit here, but it needs like Python, Vega, all of those have a visual language where it's written in stone and normalized on like this function does this will do this. When Power BI was built in 2015 with like the nested JSON and all that other stuff, its structure makes it difficult to programmatically build from scripting rather than using the UI. So I do wonder if we might ever get like a Power BI 2.0 that like it looks and smells roughly what it does today, but with a different code base that would allow for Copilot to sit there and code against it. So like that, if I had a magic 8-ball where I could wish, that would be my thing, is like, it doesn't even have to look that different, but I think the code structure evolves to a point where you can blindly prompt Copilots for other stuff to do it, and it can make changes without breaking stuff or causing weird things. Like Kurt just did a blog where he conditionally formatted a line chart with a gradient, which isn't even a feature available in the UI because the code's there, but it was the LLM accidentally found it because it was a product that was added but never released in the format pane. So like stuff like that, wouldn't be as much of an issue with like the Python library or other stuff like that. So I do wonder where we might end up in a few years.
Yeah, it's interesting because I also see Power BI is kind of catching up to some of the things. I mean, we're definitely in a better place than where we had like a raw binary blob that we weren't able to do much with programmatically. I mean, with PBIP and PBIR, we can do more, and the MCP that was recently released is really powerful for automating some of these like small developer nuisances. I think the big breaking point will be on the consumption side, that people are suddenly getting used to being able to do more than just visuals. I think that's the biggest risk. I don't necessarily like the movement, but I see a movement where the barriers between analytics and operations are being more and more blurred, and we have senior managers, we have C-level managers who want to say, well, when I'm looking at my like like financial ledger, I want to be able to click it and do this action, or I want to
Yep.
be able to quickly send this to my colleague, or I want to have an agent do something with this data and some automated action. And that kind of actions on your visuals or on your data, I think that's going to be one of the challenges that Power BI needs to find a way to keep up with. It has done something with the, what's it called again? The user translytical task flows. Translytical task flows combined with the UDF. Not to be
Funny
confused
enough
with the
is
DAX
that
UDF.
that product is where Miguel Myers moved to as a program manager now. I love the man, and he's really good at design, and he was on the Power BI team for a while, but I think was trying to do too many things. For context, his role is now like redistributed to like 4 different people that he used to do by himself, split up for his jobs. But he's now over at Translytical Task Flows doing, I'm assuming, some amazing stuff with that. So yeah.
I'm also waiting in anticipation, because I do see like right now we can do really powerful stuff both within the Microsoft stack, but also without the Microsoft stack. And I really would like for Power BI to like keep being the #1 tool for all like data usage or data analytical usage. I think that's that would be nice.
Exactly. Tangents aside, for wrap-ups, are there any later? It sounds like you'll provide me a link that I can put in the description for people to check out some of the notebooks if they want to import those themselves. Otherwise, any links, resources, references, anything you might suggest for people to go poke around on some of this stuff themselves or get started?
I mean, I would definitely recommend like to start with the official Microsoft stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of documentation on, there is some documentation on the data agents. I mean, it's easy to get started. I would say play around with it, dig into kind of that context of what goes on beneath the engine and look at those diagnostics, or find a way to programmatically extract them, because it gives some key insights into that there's actually a lot going on. But then just, I mean, the official the official channels, the links I'll send you, the docs
Perfect.
and the GitHub repos, and there's a bunch of good stuff here. Yeah, so I would recommend start there. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. You'll be able to find more and more and more, but yeah, that's a good starting point.
I think the pet projects with stuff like this is easy to get lost in with a lot of those, because it's the threshold's been lowered where something that would have taken 20 might only take an hour, but then like you start like 3 or 4 of those and you still end up spending 5 hours doing a bunch of stuff and building a bunch of things for yourself.
For sure. I have together with my good friend Mark, we're doing a training on this topic, and all I've shown you today is kind of, there will be a little bit extra, but we're kind of going to spend a full day just getting everyone there to be able to understand all of the topics in depth and understand all the like the intricacies, and get to the point where they could make something like this app for themselves. I mean, that's not an easy feat. I mean, it takes time and it takes effort. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, hey, I just pulled this together in 3.5 hours, but being able to do that also required to know how does token works in Azure, how do LLMs work, how does the OpenAI API work, and all those things. So I know it won't be as easy as I make it seem like, but it's, on the other hand, it's not hard to get started. So just get started.
Exactly. So with that, I want to thank you so much for coming on and providing a fun sandbox and poking around. And I saw like Chris Wagner and a few others even popped in and joined. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the good questions from the chat as well. But then, I'm sure I'll get you back on it probably before the end of next Christmas season. But otherwise as well, I'm looking forward to the next holiday special with that. And thank you for taking time out of your Friday to join for this.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to see you in the next year, and all the rest of you.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining in.
Absolutely. And everyone, have a great weekend and take care, and see you online for the next stream. All right.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.